Hello and welcome to My Opinion Archive. In today's video I'm going to talk about the Circle of Magi from the Dragon Age universe. The Circle is an organization made to train mages and is controlled by the Chantry, which is basically the church. And they have an organization called the Templars, who are meant to guard and supervise these mages, and they are specially trained to deal with mages. So before I continue explaining the circle, I want to point out that this is a version of the circle. There is a different version in Tevinter, which is controlled in a completely different way, and is, much different, and I'm going to briefly talk about that throughout the video, but that's not going to be the focus. So the circle is allowed to take any child from their family as soon as they show any sign of magical ability, including from nobles. And when they take a child from a noble family, that child loses all its titles and positions, so it can't continue the family line or anything like that. The children that are taken by the circle are trained until they reach adulthood, at which time they must undergo the harrowing, which is a trial to see whether or not they are strong enough to resist demons, or be made tranquil if they are not. Becoming tranquil basically means that they lose their connection to magic and all of their emotions. So now I'm just going to give you a short contrast between Tevinter's circle and the general circle we see in the Dragon Age games, and that is that the circles in Tevinter are not mandatory. It's a privilege. They are more like prestigious academies than places where mages basically become more or less prisoners, depending on how you look at it. The circle has a very mixed reputation among mages and non-mages alike. Despite the restriction imposed on its members, it is not actually a system of slavery, as the mages themselves, while not entirely free to do what they want, are not actually owned by the Chantry, and are not forced into servitude on behalf of the Chantry. Nevertheless, of course, due to limitations on personal freedoms, the circle more or less starts to look like a prison. However, there are laws that circles are supposed to respect certain rights of the mages, but due to weak oversight and people who aren't really advocating for these rights and corruption, it ends up being ignored, and there can be, very much abuse, and the effect of these laws are respected on varying degrees throughout the different circles. So one of the big rules that really removes freedom from mages is that romantic unions are not allowed, but that of course doesn't stop the mages from carrying out secret love affairs. If that should produce a child, then any child born in a circle officially belongs to the church, and should that child be a mage himself, they will be sent to a different circle than their parents. So this was a brief explanation of what the circle is and how it works. I'm now going to give you my opinion on the circle. So the arguments that are for the circle, which is mostly used throughout the games, I can sort of understand. It is that, of course, you need to control dangerous mages, because it can really be necessary when a powerful mage can do a lot of bad things and kill a lot of people. So by that point I sort of agree that a circle is needed, and having some specially trained people like the Templars to be able to potentially protect mages against other mages and protect the world against these mages, I think is a necessity. When it comes to the tranquility thing, basically removing magic from the mages, I think it has some very bad side effects. But I also think that for as cruel as it is, it can be necessary, because again, a rogue mage that is possessed by a demon can do a lot of damage and kill a lot of people, and I don't think that necessarily makes it right to remove people's magic and emotions, but I also don't know of an alternative. And if there isn't an alternative, then that can be the only way to prevent such things. In the same way, I understand the necessity of having remote locations, because if magic goes chaotic, it can be very good to have it removed from populated areas. I think the circle could be a very, very good thing if the idea was to focus on treating mages right and teaching them how to use their abilities for something good, and not having them surrounded by people who fear them and are hostile towards them and are suspicious of their every move. In that way, I think the Templars should be taught to be vigilant, but of course also treat the mages with respect as people. Now, the argument against the circle is of course corruption and little oversight, which of course leads to the bad treatment we see throughout the games, which very easily can make mages understandably both angry and depressed, and makes them angry towards not only the Templars or Chantry, but basically the entire world, which doesn't work well when you're trying to train mages to be good and help the world, that you also treat them badly, because then they start to resent everyone. And now I would like to contradict myself, because that's always fun. As I said, I understand the use of the remote locations for the circle, but the problem that leads to is that normal people don't see mages. They just hear about these remote towers and locations far away, where mages do all sort of weird stuff, and rumors could very easily start, which makes mages scary to other people, which means that when they finally do meet a mage, people will be suspicious, perhaps scared of them, and the mages themselves won't have interacted with normal people either, so they might also have some problems in those regards. Now, another problem I see in Circle is what is known as the right of annulment, which basically says that if something goes wrong, the Templars can get permission to kill everyone within a circle. And again, it's one of those drastic measures which I understand the logic behind. You know, if something goes completely utterly chaotic and demons start pouring out, you want to make sure that everything is under control and none of the people involved in that are alive to make it happen again. But the fact that it exists and that people don't know it exists can create a lot of paranoia among mages, because what if someone makes the decision to use the right of annulment? What if Templars decide to use it during some catastrophe? Then you could be killed, whether or not you are a loyal mage, or whether or not you went against the Templars. So that could create a lot of paranoia, because if something happens, you don't know whether or not you're going to be killed, just because you are a mage, no matter what you do to help out. Now, another problem with the circles has something to do with my previous statement about how the Templars treat the mages. And that is that the Templars, as part of their job, is of course monitoring the mages. And that can also create a lot of paranoia, because you know you're being monitored, you know they are keeping an eye out whether or not you are a threat. And since Templars and mages aren't exactly interacting, due to, of course, you don't want your Templars to hesitate because they like the mage. But this leads to this problem with the Templars basically just being monitoring you all the time, and you don't know what they're thinking. And you might be afraid that if they start to see you as a failure, then you could become a tranquil, which most mages understandably doesn't want to become. So that can create this whole paranoia deal, and could lead to, again, resentment and problematic behavior if you start to even act out, the Templars could use this against you. So my thought about the circle is that it is a good idea. In theory, it's a very good idea to have these remote locations where mages can study and you can keep an eye on them and you have some security if things should go wrong. But the idea has become, well, a prison. It has become a very big problem because the mages aren't treated correctly. If we don't know exactly how it works in Tevinter down to many of the details, but I think it would be a good idea to take some thoughts from Tevinter and treat it more as a school than a prison. Of course, magic is dangerous, so security is needed, but to treat them correctly would make less threats. So I think that the circle should be changed, but I don't necessarily think it should be removed. But it shouldn't be a prison. These people shouldn't be imprisoned. They should be taught to use their powers for good and respect that there is a danger, because that would also make them more likely to understand why the Templars are necessary. But they need to see the Templars as a security measure, as people who are there to help them and help the community, and not as their prison guards, basically. Thank you for watching.